The morning air over the mountains was cold and crisp, carrying the scent of pine and the faint smoke of distant fires. High above the jagged peaks, Eldrin, the sky dragon, glided silently, his immense wings cutting through the thin air with effortless grace. His scales shimmered like molten silver under the first light of dawn, and his eyes, deep and amber, scanned the world below. He had watched this land for centuries, guarding it in ways humans could never understand. Though the villagers feared dragons, Eldrin had always protected them from unseen dangers, quietly ensuring that life continued in its fragile balance. In the village, nestled at the foot of the mountains, the day had begun much like any other. Smoke rose from small chimneys, children ran barefoot along narrow paths, and merchants called out their wares. Among them, a small child named Leora laughed, chasing a stray rabbit across the meadow near the cliff's edge. Her golden hair caught the sunlight, her laughter ringing like delicate bells in the still morning. Eldrin's gaze softened as he watched her from above. This child had always been different, curious, fearless, and full of life. Though dragons did not often care for humans, Eldrin had grown strangely attached to her over the years. Drawn to the purity of her spirit, the peace of the morning was shattered when a group of strangers appeared, their boots crunching against the rocky path, eyes sharp and greedy. They were mercenaries, hired to search the mountains for an artifact rumored to possess great power. None of them belonged to the village, and their presence brought a tension that Eldrin could sense even from the sky. He felt a ripple of unease run through the air. The humans were unaware of what was to come, blind to the danger that now stirred. Leora, oblivious to the approaching threat, reached the edge of the cliff. Her small hands brushed against the wildflowers that grew stubbornly in the cracks of the rocks. Eldrin's wings twitched instinctively, a warning that went unheeded. The mercenaries, in their pursuit of the artifact, disturbed a loose pile of stones. The ground beneath Leora's feet trembled. Eldrin's eyes widened as he dove, beating his massive wings furiously, trying to reach her in time. But the laws of the physical world were unforgiving. Stones gave way beneath the child, and she fell. Time seemed to slow for Eldrin, the wind howling in his ears as he plummeted toward her. He reached out with claws and wings, but it was too late. Leora's small body struck the rocks below, motionless. Eldrin landed heavily at the edge of the cliff, his chest heaving, his eyes blazing with sorrow and rage. He had witnessed death before, but never in this way. The raw, unfiltered pain of losing something so precious, so innocent, pierced through the centuries of his existence. The mercenaries froze, staring at the dragon in shock. Fear and awe mingled in their eyes as Eldrin's roar echoed through the valley, a sound that seemed to shake the very air. The villagers, emerging from their homes at the commotion, gasped in terror. To them, dragons were legends, terrifying beings of fire and destruction. Yet here was one whose grief was so palpable it seemed almost human. Eldrin did not roar in anger at them. His rage was deeper, darker, directed at the cruelty of chance itself, at the fragility of life that even he could not control. Eldrin's mind raced. He felt a strange vibration in the air, subtle yet insistent, a rhythm that seemed to count down the seconds. 36 minutes. He did not understand why, but he sensed with certainty that something monumental would occur in exactly 36 minutes. It was as if the universe itself had acknowledged the injustice of Leora's death and was preparing a response. Eldrin's wings trembled with anticipation. He had always known dragons possessed power beyond human comprehension, but this was different. This was a call to act, to intervene in a way that might change fate itself. The mercenaries, trembling and unsure, turned to flee, but Eldrin's gaze pinned them in place. His eyes glowed with an intensity that forced them to pause. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, stumbled backward, realizing too late that greed had led them to this moment. Eldrin did not strike. He did not yet need to. His presence alone was enough to command obedience, to instill a respect born of both fear and wonder. The dragon's sorrow, immense and unyielding, radiated outward, touching even the hearts of those who had come seeking power for themselves. Meanwhile, the villagers began to gather, their voices trembling as they whispered amongst themselves. They spoke of the child, of the dragon, of the strange, vibrating air that seemed to hum with energy. Eldran looked down at them, and in that moment, he saw something remarkable. Despite their fear, their confusion, and their grief, the humans were resilient. Some of them began to organize, guiding children and the elderly away from danger. Their courage, small yet unwavering, sparked a recognition in Eldran. Humans were fragile, yes, but they possessed something the dragons had rarely seen: the ability to act selflessly, to protect one another even when faced with overwhelming fear. Eldran's thoughts drifted to the history of dragons and humans. Long ago, they had shared a bond of mutual respect and understanding. Humans had once revered dragons as guardians, protectors of the earth and sky. Over time, myths had replaced reality, fear had replaced reverence, and the world had grown apart. Yet, in these villagers, Eldran saw echoes of that ancient connection. He realized that perhaps the death of this child, tragic as it was, could become a catalyst for something greater, a reminder of what humans could achieve when they embraced courage and compassion. The vibration in the air grew stronger, a low hum that resonated through the mountains and into the village. Eldran spread his wings and rose into the sky, circling above the cliffs. The mercenaries, now frozen with fear, could do nothing as the dragon's shadow passed over them. From above, Eldran could see the full extent of the danger. The mountain itself seemed to stir, faint cracks appearing along the volcanic slopes, subtle yet ominous. Eldran understood that the universe was sending a warning, a signal that the balance of life was shifting. 36 minutes remained, and within that time, the course of destiny might change irrevocably. Eldran's mind focused on the child. Leora's life had been brief, but it had left an impression on the dragon that no other human ever had. Her laughter, her curiosity, her fearlessness, all of it lingered in his mind like a song he could not forget. He realized that the bond he felt was not one of instinct, but of true connection. The child's death was not merely an accident. It was a loss that demanded action. Eldran's wings beat faster as he considered his options. He could unleash his power, alter the course of the mountain, perhaps even influence the very forces that governed life and death. The challenge was immense, but the dragon's resolve was absolute. Below, the villagers continued to react. Some ran to the edge of the cliff, crying out in grief and confusion. Others helped the mercenaries who had stumbled and fallen in their panic. In the midst of this chaos, a young boy named Kale stepped forward. His eyes, filled with determination, met Eldran's from afar. The dragon felt a flicker of recognition. This human was different. He was small, fragile, yet his spirit burned brightly. Eldran knew that the actions of this boy, and others like him, could tip the balance in the moments to come. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of ash and earth, and Eldran sensed the mountain's deeper heartbeat. There was a rhythm to it, a pulse that resonated with the countdown in the air. 36 minutes. The number seemed etched into reality itself. Eldran's claws dug into the rocky outcroppings as he hovered, muscles tensed, wings poised for action. Every nerve in his body thrummed with anticipation. The universe was preparing for a reckoning, and the dragon would be its instrument. As the villagers began to grasp the enormity of what was happening, Eldran's thoughts turned inward. He reflected on the nature of life, of loss, of courage. Humans were fragile, yet capable of remarkable resilience. They feared what they did not understand. Yet they could rise above that fear when driven by love, loyalty, or determination. Eldran realized that this understanding, this insight into the human spirit, was as powerful as any flame he could summon. Perhaps it was this spirit, more than strength or magic, that could change the fate of the world. The sky above the mountains darkened subtly, as if in response to the dragon's contemplation. Clouds gathered, swirling with energy that seemed alive. Eldran felt it pressing against him, a force that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. He knew that in 36 minutes, the world would shift, and nothing would remain the same. He could feel the tension in the air, The expectation of the unseen. The universe was watching, and he, Eldrin, was the guardian chosen to witness and respond. He spread his wings wide, catching the rising wind, and let out a roar that echoed across the peaks. It was a sound of grief, of warning, of power. The villagers froze, their eyes wide, hearts pounding. They understood, in that instant, that the dragon was not merely a creature of myth or terror. He was a force of nature, a guardian, a witness to the fragility and strength of life itself. Eldrin's gaze softened as he looked toward the horizon, toward the spaces where the sky met the mountains. Somewhere out there, forces were stirring, and within 36 minutes, their presence would be undeniable. Eldrin hovered above the cliff one last time, eyes fixed on the small, broken form of Leora. The sorrow he felt was profound, but it had transformed into resolve. He would act, he would protect, he would teach, and perhaps he would help the humans remember what it meant to be alive, to be brave, to be more than mere mortals facing the cruelty of chance. The countdown had begun, and the dragon's wings, wide and powerful, carried him into the unknown, ready to face whatever the universe would bring. The mountains trembled softly, a subtle vibration that ran through stone and soil alike. Eldrin circled high above the peaks, wings cutting through the crisp air with powerful strokes. His eyes, glowing faintly with the reflection of the rising sun, scanned the village below. The humans were still recovering from the shock of the morning, their whispers rising like a chorus of fear and confusion. Many had seen the dragon's grief, had felt the weight of his presence, and yet none could fully understand what was coming. Eldrin, however, did. He could feel the threads of time stretching, pulling toward a moment that would change everything. 36 minutes, the strange, exact countdown, still pulsed through the air, a rhythm he could not ignore. In the village, the children had been gathered by their parents, eyes wide with both awe and fear. Some of the elders, whose memories stretched back farther than most, recalled stories of dragons that had once roamed freely, creatures that humans had worshipped and feared in equal measure. They had long dismissed those stories as myths, but now, standing before the colossal presence of Eldrin, they felt the truth in their bones. Something was about to happen, something that had not occurred in generations. Kale, the young boy who had stared at Eldrin from the edge of the cliff, moved carefully among the villagers. He had lost his friend, Leora, and the pain of that loss burned in his chest. Yet beneath the grief, a flicker of determination stirred. Eldrin had not harmed him, not yet, and somehow, Kale understood that this dragon, vast and powerful, was connected to what was about to unfold. He had to act, had to do something, though he did not yet know what. He knelt beside an elderly villager and helped gather children into safer areas, guiding them away from the cliffs and the trembling earth. The villagers watched in silent astonishment, realizing that courage was not the sole property of dragons or legends. Humans could rise to face the unknown, too. The mercenaries were another matter entirely. They huddled together, fear making them reckless. The tall man with the scar, the apparent leader, barked orders, but the others shook their heads and refused to follow. The ground beneath their feet shifted with a subtle vibration that Eldrin could sense was linked to the approaching moment. They had come seeking treasure, power, and glory. But now they faced forces far beyond their comprehension. Eldrin's eyes narrowed. He did not need to strike them yet. Their fear was sufficient. A lesson in humility and respect that no gold could ever buy. High above, Eldrin's wings beat with a rhythm that mirrored the vibration in the air. He focused his senses, reaching out with a kind of awareness that was unique to dragons, an instinctual connection to the world around him. He could feel the currents of air, the subtle shifts in temperature, the tension in every living being below. The universe was preparing itself, and he was at the center of it. His thoughts turned back to Leora, the child whose life had ended too soon. Her innocence had sparked something within him, a connection to humans that transcended instinct. It was more than grief, it was recognition, a sense that human courage and compassion could influence forces far larger than themselves. The vibration in the air intensified, sending shivers through the village. Eldran dove closer, his massive form casting a shadow that darkened the streets below. The humans scattered, instinctively seeking shelter, while Kale remained in the open, eyes fixed on the dragon. Eldran's gaze met his, and in that moment, an understanding passed between them. This was not just about destruction or death. It was about choice, about the potential for humans to rise and meet a challenge that was beyond anything they had faced before. Kale's resolve strengthened, and he moved with purpose, helping others without hesitation. Even the mercenaries, despite their fear, could not help but notice the boy's bravery. The mountains themselves seemed to respond. Cracks appeared along the volcanic slopes, subtle at first, but growing more pronounced with each passing minute. Eldran sensed the energy building beneath the earth, a power that could erupt violently if left unchecked. He stretched his wings and rose higher, feeling the raw force of nature around him. He could influence it, shape it, but only with precision. One wrong move could spell disaster not just for the village, but for the surrounding lands as well. His ancient mind calculated possibilities, weighing risk against necessity, power against compassion. Dragons had always been feared for their strength, but Eldran now understood that restraint and wisdom were just as vital as fire and claws. As he hovered, Eldran began to test his abilities subtly. He summoned gusts of wind to clear debris from paths, guiding humans away from danger without them realizing it. He caused small tremors, gentle enough to warn but not to harm, a reminder that the earth itself was alive and responsive. The villagers felt these disturbances, sensing both danger and protection, though they could not comprehend the source. It was a delicate balance, one that Eldran maintained with careful concentration. Each movement, each shift in the air, was deliberate, a demonstration of the dragon's ancient knowledge and power. Kael moved among the villagers, his actions guided by instinct and courage. He saw the cracks in the ground, the trembling stones, and understood that something far greater than human strength was at play. He rallied others, helping them move to safer ground, comforting the frightened, and ensuring that no one was left behind. Eldran watched him, impressed by the boy's bravery and quick thinking. This human, small and fragile, possessed a spirit that resonated with the dragon in ways that few humans ever had. In Kael, Eldran saw the potential for a bond that could redefine the relationship between humans and dragons, a possibility that had lain dormant for centuries. The mercenaries, meanwhile, grew desperate. Their greed and ambition had brought them here, but now it was clear that they were outmatched. One of them tried to climb the cliff to escape the dragon's shadow, but the ground beneath him crumbled. He fell back with a cry of terror, and the others hesitated, unsure whether to help or flee. Eldran's gaze swept over them, and without a word, a subtle force lifted the fallen man, setting him safely on the ground. It was a gesture of both power and mercy, a reminder that the dragon's wrath was tempered by wisdom. Fear alone was not enough to control the humans, but the demonstration of restraint taught them a lesson they would not forget. Above the mountains, the sky began to change. Clouds gathered, swirling in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, as if the heavens themselves were aware of the approaching moment. Light shifted, casting eerie shadows over the village, and a faint hum resonated through the air. Eldran felt it deep in his bones, a vibration that matched the 36-minute countdown he had sensed since Leora's death. Time seemed to stretch and contract. Every second weighted with significance. The universe was preparing to reveal something monumental, and he was both witness and participant. Eldran's thoughts returned to the past, to the history of dragons and humans. Long ago, dragons had been revered as guardians, protectors of the earth and sky. Humans had honored them, building shrines and telling stories that celebrated their wisdom and strength. Over centuries, fear and greed had replaced reverence, and the bond between species had frayed. Yet in this village, Eldran saw remnants of that ancient connection. The courage of Kael, the resilience of the villagers, and even the awe-inspired fear of the mercenaries were echoes of a time when humans and dragons had stood together against the unknown. Perhaps this tragedy, painful as it was, could rekindle that bond, reminding both species of what they could achieve when united by purpose and respect. As the countdown drew closer, the tension in the air became almost tangible. Eldrin extended his senses outward, feeling the subtle movements of every living being in the mountains. He could sense the heartbeat of the earth, the tremors beneath the volcanic slopes, the collective fear and hope of the humans below. It was a symphony of life and energy, each element influencing the other. The dragon realized that the universe was not passive. It was alive, responsive, and capable of change. Within 36 minutes, that change would arrive, and every action taken in the intervening moments mattered. Kale continued his efforts among the villagers, guiding them with quiet authority. He moved swiftly, his small frame belied by the determination in his eyes. Eldrin observed, noting how the boy's courage inspired others. Fear was still present, but it was tempered by a growing sense of purpose. Humans, fragile though they were, could rise to meet challenges that seemed impossible. The dragon felt a deep sense of admiration, a recognition that human resilience and spirit were forces in their own right. In this young boy, Eldrin saw a spark that could ignite a greater understanding, a bridge between species that had long been divided by fear and legend. The mercenaries, now fully aware of the dragon's power, attempted to flee. Their movements were clumsy, uncoordinated, and driven by panic. Eldrin did not chase them. Not yet. Instead, he hovered, wings spread wide, eyes fixed on the volcano and the surrounding landscape. He sensed the energy building, a force that could erupt with devastating consequences. The mercenaries' fear was palpable, but it was also instructive. They represented the greed and recklessness that often led to destruction, a counterpoint to the courage and selflessness that Kale and the villagers embodied. Eldrin understood that both aspects of humanity were present, intertwined in a delicate balance that could tip the outcome in any direction. The sky continued to darken subtly, the clouds thickening as if in response to Eldrin's awareness. Light flickered, casting moving shadows that danced across the mountains and the village. The hum in the air grew louder, a sound that resonated deep within the bones of those who listened. 36 minutes were dwindling, and every second carried weight. Eldrin's wings beat steadily, maintaining altitude and control, as he prepared for what was to come. The mountain tremors grew more pronounced, signaling that the earth itself was aware of the approaching climax. The dragon's ancient senses told him that precise action would be required, that both human courage and dragon power would be tested. Kale, noticing the changing sky and trembling earth, gathered the villagers in a safer area near the center of the village. He moved with a clarity that surprised even himself, guiding the frightened and injured, comforting those who could not understand what was happening. Eldrin watched from above, feeling a mixture of pride and concern. The humans were untrained, fragile, yet their actions carried meaning and purpose. Their courage, small and tentative though it was, resonated with the larger forces at play. Eldrin understood that the next 36 minutes would be a turning point, a moment when human bravery and dragon wisdom could alter the course of fate itself. The earth beneath the village trembled more violently now, and the subtle vibrations of earlier had transformed into low, menacing rumbles. Eldrin hovered over the cliffs, wings extended wide, eyes fixed on the heart of the mountains. The volcano, dormant for centuries, was waking. Faint trails of smoke curled from its summit, carrying the scent of sulfur and molten stone. The villagers had never witnessed anything like it. Panic spread quickly as the ground shook, and the older villagers screamed for everyone to take cover. Children cried, their fear raw and uncontrollable, while Kale moved among them, guiding, supporting, calming. He had lost Leora, yet her memory gave him strength, a quiet courage that Eldrin recognized and admired. The dragon's eyes flicked to the mercenaries, who now scrambled in chaos. Their earlier fear had turned into desperation. Some tried to flee down the narrow paths, but stones tumbled underfoot, and the tremors made escape nearly impossible. Eldrin's gaze pinned them in place. He did not strike, for his purpose was not destruction, but guidance. Even so, the sheer force of his presence caused them to pause, to realize that they were no longer in control. Every instinct screamed at them to run, but the landscape itself was moving against them. The mountains were alive, resonating with the dragon's energy, responding to his will. Eldrin felt the mountain's heartbeat as clearly as his own. Magma shifted beneath the earth, carving channels, pressing against rocks and creating pressure that threatened to burst violently if left unchecked. He could feel the immense energy building, raw and unpredictable. And yet, amidst this chaos, Eldrin remained calm. He was a creature of power, ancient and wise, and he understood the delicate balance that must be maintained. One wrong move could spell devastation not just for the village, but for all the lands below the mountains. He flexed his wings, causing gusts of wind that swept through the village, clearing debris, redirecting falling stones, and protecting the humans as best he could. Kale, undeterred by the shaking earth and screaming villagers, pressed on. He moved to help the injured, lifting a small child from the rubble and carrying her to safety. Every step was dangerous, yet he never faltered. Eldrin's eyes followed him, glowing faintly with appreciation. In this boy, he saw a reflection of human potential, a spark of courage and selflessness that reminded him of what humanity could achieve. Humans were fragile, yes, but their hearts could be as strong as the mountains themselves when driven by love, loyalty, or determination. Kale's bravery was proof of that, and Eldrin realized that humans and dragons, when aligned in purpose, could face even the most unimaginable dangers together. The mercenaries' panic escalated. One tried to ascend higher up the cliff to escape the shaking earth, only to be caught in a small rock slide. He shouted in terror as stones tumbled around him, but Eldrin's wings swooped close, creating a wind strong enough to blow him safely onto a ledge. It was a gesture of power and mercy, one that terrified the remaining mercenaries even further. They began to understand that Eldrin was not simply a creature of instinct or rage. He was a force of nature, aware, deliberate, and capable of precise action. Fear alone was not enough to control him. Yet it was also a lesson they would never forget. The volcano groaned and shuddered, and a plume of smoke rose higher into the sky, darkening the sunlight. Eldrin extended his claws, feeling the heat and pressure radiating from the summit. He knew that the mountain could erupt at any moment, sending molten lava and ash across the valley. But he also sensed the potential to guide that power, to redirect it away from the humans and use it as a warning and a test. The universe had marked this moment with the 36-minute countdown, and Eldrin understood that the next decisions he made would determine the outcome for all who lived in the shadow of the volcano. Kale led the villagers toward the center of the village, the only relatively safe area left, as cracks opened in the streets and stones shifted dangerously. Despite their fear, the villagers listened to him, drawn by the quiet authority and determination that radiated from the boy. Eldrin circled above, sweeping gusts of wind to push debris away from those he guided. He also lifted smoke and small clouds of ash, clearing the air to make the trembling skies visible to the humans below. For a moment, the village and dragon became a synchronized force. Humans using their courage and instinct, Eldrin using his ancient power to protect and guide. The sky itself began to change. Clouds gathered in thick, swirling formations, reflecting light in unusual patterns. Faint glimmers of colors not seen before shimmered across the horizon. Eldrin's wings beat rhythmically, channeling energy from the air and earth, creating currents that stirred the clouds in precise ways. It was as if the heavens themselves were responding to the presence of life below, reacting to the courage of humans and the authority of dragons. The sky vibrated with energy, a low hum that resonated in every human heart and stirred every instinct in every animal. 36 minutes had passed since Leora's death, and the universe was now poised on the edge of a revelation. Eldrin's mind focused again on the mercenaries. One of them, desperate and reckless, tried to strike at the dragon with a crude weapon, shouting curses and threats. Eldrin did not retaliate physically. Instead, he unleashed a controlled gust of wind that knocked the man off balance and sent him sprawling safely into a crevice. It was a lesson in humility, showing the humans below that power could be precise and purposeful, not merely destructive. The other mercenaries froze, realizing that their greed and recklessness had brought them here not for treasure, but for a confrontation with forces beyond their comprehension. Meanwhile, Kale had reached the center of the village with the other villagers gathered around him. His eyes reflected the shimmering sky above. And he understood, in a way no one else could, that their survival depended not on fear, but on courage and unity. "Stay together," he called, voice steady despite the trembling ground. "Help each other. We will survive this, if we stay brave." His words carried weight, reaching into the hearts of the frightened villagers and igniting sparks of determination. Eldrin observed silently, approving of the boy's leadership. Humans could rise, he realized, even in the face of forces that dwarfed their understanding. The volcano's rumblings grew louder, and cracks along its slopes widened, sending faint trails of molten lava seeping through the rock. Eldrin sensed the raw, uncontrollable power beneath him. This energy could easily destroy the village. Yet it could also be guided. The dragon extended his senses, feeling the flow of magma as clearly as a river in the sky. With careful movements, he shifted air currents, creating pressure points that redirected molten streams away from the village. Every wing beat, every movement of his massive body, was calculated to maintain balance, to channel nature's destructive potential into protection rather than annihilation. Above, the clouds swirled more violently. Light refracted through the ash and mist, painting the sky with colors no human had ever witnessed. Eldrin felt the resonance of the universe respond to the courage below. Kale, standing among the villagers, looked up at the spectacle and felt a strange warmth, as if the very sky acknowledged their bravery. It was a moment of awe, of understanding that life, courage, and action could influence forces far greater than themselves. Eldrin knew that this was why he had been present, why he had witnessed Leora's death. It was not simply loss, it was a test, a chance for humans to show their strength of spirit, and for dragons to guide them without destroying. The mercenaries, now huddled together, no longer attempted escape. Their fear had transformed into reverence. Mixed with disbelief, they could feel the dragon's power and the potential for catastrophe. Yet they also sensed the restraint and precision with which Eldrin acted. The young humans below, led by Kale, were moving with purpose, demonstrating bravery that rivaled even the dragon's might. Eldrin's eyes softened as he observed them. Humanity, fragile as it seemed, possessed qualities that could command respect from even the oldest and most powerful of creatures. A sudden, sharper tremor shook the village, throwing some of the villagers off balance. Eldrin dove slightly, beating his wings to generate a protective gust that shielded the humans from falling debris. He could feel the energy surging beneath the volcano, the molten pressure building to a critical point. Yet, in the midst of this chaos, the humans continued to act with courage. Kale assisted the elderly, guided the children, and reassured the injured. Every act of bravery, no matter how small, resonated through the air, through the dragon, and into the mountain itself. It was as though the universe itself was measuring their spirit, weighing the value of human courage against the raw forces of nature. The sky trembled, a low vibration that grew louder and more insistent. Eldrin extended his claws, feeling the energy of the mountain and sky intertwine. The 36 minutes had passed since Leora's death, and now the culmination approached. The dragon's massive form moved with intent, creating wind currents that shaped the ash clouds and directed pressure away from the village. He did not act with anger or revenge. Instead, he moved with purpose, with wisdom, and with a recognition of the fragile, yet resilient, courage of the humans below. Kale, sensing the shift in energy, shouted to the villagers to stay calm. "We are strong together," he cried. "We are brave, and we will endure." The villagers, inspired by the boy's words and reassured by the dragon's presence, focused on supporting each other. Fear still lingered, but it was tempered by determination and solidarity. Eldrin observed this harmony, recognizing that humans, though fragile, could act as a force in alignment with the natural and cosmic energies at play. The volcano's peak shuddered violently, and a plume of molten ash and smoke shot skyward. Eldrin rose higher, extending his wings to catch the rising currents. Controlling the flow as best he could, the air around him shimmered, colored with reflections of energy that humans had never seen. It was not merely a display of power, it was a dance of cosmic forces, guided by ancient wisdom and human courage intertwined. The village below remained intact, protected by the dragon's careful control and the villagers' brave actions. The sky above the mountains shimmered with colors that no human had ever seen. Light danced across the swirling clouds, reflecting hues of gold, violet, and deep crimson. Eldrin hovered high, wings outstretched, muscles tense as he guided the air currents with precise movements. The volcano, now fully awake, trembled and groaned, but its fury was contained within the channels of molten rock that Eldrin had begun to manipulate. He had drawn on every ounce of his ancient knowledge, using the mountain's own energy against itself to protect the humans below. Yet the task was far from over. The raw power of the volcano was immense, and only a combination of human courage and dragon wisdom could prevent catastrophe. Kale, standing in the center of the village, looked up at the sky in awe. His heart pounded as he saw the spectacle unfolding above him, the colors, the swirling clouds, the vibrating air that hummed with energy. Despite the fear that still lingered, he felt a strange calm. Eldrin's presence was both terrifying and reassuring. The dragon had saved them, yes, but he had also demonstrated that humans, through courage and unity, could play a part in shaping destiny. Kale turned to the villagers around him, shouting instructions and encouragement. "Move together, stay calm, help one another." His voice carried across the trembling streets, instilling hope where fear had taken root. The mercenaries, huddled against the base of a cliff, no longer attempted escape. Their greed and recklessness had been replaced by fear and awe. They watched as Eldrin's massive wings shifted the air currents, controlling the flow of smoke and molten rock. They could feel the heat on their skin and the vibrations through their feet, yet they were unable to flee or resist. Some tried to apologize, some prayed, but all understood that their powerlessness was total. Eldrin, aware of their presence, chose restraint. His gaze softened slightly, recognizing that even the most selfish of humans could witness courage and perhaps learn from it. Molten streams began to flow from cracks in the volcano's slopes, bright orange and threatening, yet Eldrin guided them with precision. He created currents of wind and pressure that diverted the lava away from the village, channeling it safely down natural gullies where it would cause no harm. The air trembled with the combined energy of the mountain and the dragon, yet no human or creature in the village was injured. Eldrin's control was meticulous, a demonstration of both raw power and careful restraint. He understood that the universe was watching, and that every action mattered not just in saving lives, but in showing what humans and dragons could achieve together. KL moved among the villagers, checking on the children and the elderly. His small hands guided the frightened, lifting them from danger and helping them to safer ground. Every act of courage, no matter how small, seemed to ripple outward. Eldrin could feel it, the resonance of bravery and selflessness. Each human action, aligned with purpose and compassion, strengthened the protective currents he had created. The boy's courage and the villagers' cooperation were proof that humanity, fragile though it might be, could rise to meet unimaginable challenges. Eldrin felt a deep respect for them. This was why he had watched over the mountains for centuries. It was not simply to guard life, but to witness it, to see what humans could become when faced with true adversity. The mercenaries, finally silent, watched in disbelief as one of their companions tried to climb higher and was gently swept down by a sudden gust created by Eldrin. None of them could deny the dragon's wisdom or power, nor could they ignore the courage displayed by KL and the villagers. It was a lesson in humility, a reminder that strength alone was not enough. Respect, cooperation, and courage were just as important. Eldrin's eyes glowed faintly as he observed the humans below, noting the spark of determination that could one day bridge the gap between species. The volcano's tremors grew more intense, yet the molten lava flowed harmlessly in the paths Eldrin had created. He rose higher, scanning the skies for any unexpected changes. The clouds above responded to his movements, swirling in a rhythm that seemed almost alive. Eldrin could feel the universe itself, acknowledging the courage and bravery of the humans. The 36-minute countdown had passed since Leora's death, and now the moment of transformation was complete. Nature's fury had been redirected, chaos had been tamed, and life had been preserved. It was not merely the work of one dragon, but a combination of dragon power and human courage, working together to face a trial that could have destroyed them all. Kale, exhausted but determined, helped a small group of children to a safer part of the village. He glanced at the sky, at the shimmering clouds, and realized that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Eldrin had not simply saved them. He had shown them the potential of human bravery and the importance of unity. The boy's heart swelled with a sense of purpose. He had acted, guided by instinct and courage, and in doing so had contributed to the preservation of life. The villagers, inspired by his leadership, began to calm, understanding that fear could be managed when faced together. Eldrin descended slowly, wings folding gracefully as he approached the village square. His massive form cast a shadow over the humans, yet there was no malice in his eyes. Instead, they reflected understanding and acknowledgement. Kale looked up, meeting the dragon's gaze. In that moment, a silent communication passed between them. Eldrin recognized the boy's courage and potential, and Kale understood that dragons were not merely creatures of destruction, but guardians capable of wisdom and restraint. This unspoken bond bridged the centuries of fear and myth, hinting at a future where humans and dragons could coexist with respect and cooperation. The villagers gathered around Kale, their faces a mixture of awe, relief, and gratitude. Eldrin remained just above them, his presence a constant reminder of both power and protection. The mercenaries, humbled and silent, observed the scene, understanding that their actions and greed had brought them to the edge of disaster. They saw the courage of humans and the discipline of dragons, and perhaps, for the first time, recognized the true meaning of strength. It was not domination or fear, it was courage, unity, and the willingness to act selflessly for the good of others. Molten lava continued to flow, but it had been diverted entirely from the village. Eldrin's wings beat steadily, stabilizing the air currents and ensuring that no further danger threatened the humans below. The ground trembled less violently now, as if the mountain itself acknowledged the dragon's control and the bravery of the villagers. Eldrin sensed that the balance had been restored, and yet he remained vigilant. The universe had responded, but life, fragile as it was, required constant care and attention. His role as guardian was not over. Though the immediate threat had passed, Kale moved to the center of the square, where the villagers had gathered. He looked at their faces, seeing relief and wonder in equal measure. "We survived," he said, voice steady though still tinged with awe. "Because we stayed together. Because we were brave. And because Eldrin helped us." His words were simple, but they carried the weight of truth. Courage, unity, and the guidance of those wiser and stronger had preserved life. Eldrin, hovering above, seemed to nod in acknowledgement, as if approving of the boy's understanding. The mercenaries, now humbled, began to retreat cautiously. Their greed had led them to disaster, but they had witnessed the power of restraint, the importance of courage, and the potential of humans to rise above fear. Eldrin did not pursue them. There was no need for punishment, fear had already taught the lesson. Instead, he focused on the villagers, ensuring that the channels of molten lava were secure and that no further damage could occur. The dragon's actions were deliberate, precise, and compassionate. His power was immense, but it was tempered by wisdom, restraint, and a recognition of the fragile brilliance of human courage. As the day progressed, the village slowly recovered. The ground had settled, the air cleared, and the sun pierced through the remnants of ash clouds, casting warm light over the trembling peaks. Eldrin remained above, wings outstretched, watching over the humans as they began to rebuild and care for one another. Kale moved among them, offering guidance and encouragement, inspired by the dragon's protection and the courage he had witnessed in his fellow villagers. The boy understood now that humanity was capable of remarkable bravery, that their small actions could resonate through the world and even influence forces far greater than themselves. Eldrin's gaze lingered on Kale, and with a subtle movement, he released one of his scales, glowing faintly with a golden light. It drifted gently to the boy's hands. This is a sign, Eldrin thought. A bond between species. A reminder that courage and wisdom together can shape the world. Kale held the scale reverently, understanding its significance. It was not simply a token of power, but a symbol of trust, connection, and mutual respect. Humans and dragons had shared history, and perhaps, through moments like this, they could forge a new path together. The villagers gathered around Kale, admiring the glowing scale and reflecting on the day's events. They had witnessed disaster, faced fear, and yet survived through courage and cooperation. Eldrin's presence had been terrifying, yet protective, a living lesson in power and restraint. The boy's bravery had guided them, proving that even the smallest among humans could influence the course of fate. The village, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now brimmed with hope and inspiration. Eldrin remained in the sky for hours, circling slowly, watching the humans below as they began to rebuild. He understood that his role was not simply to protect but to witness, to guide, and to ensure that the spirit of courage and resilience in humans could flourish. The mountain had trembled, the sky had been alive with energy, and the universe had responded to the bravery of mortals and the wisdom of dragons alike. It was a moment of harmony, a rare instance where power and compassion, fear and courage, aligned perfectly. Kale, holding the glowing scale, stood at the center of the village. He looked at the dragon above and spoke quietly, almost to himself. We will remember this. We will be brave. We will honor you and Leora. The villagers nodded, understanding that the memory of the child, the dragon's guidance, and their own courage would shape their lives for years to come. Eldrin's eyes glowed softly, a silent acknowledgement of their promise. The bond forged this day was enduring, a reminder that humanity, though fragile, was capable of remarkable strength, and that dragons, though fearsome, could recognize and honor that strength. As the sun set, casting golden light over the village and the mountain peaks, Eldrin rose higher, wings extended, gliding silently over the valley. The vibrations in the air had ceased, the volcano settled, and the humans below were safe. Yet the dragon remained vigilant, aware that life was fragile, and that the lessons of courage, cooperation, and compassion must be remembered. Kale, standing among the villagers, held the glowing scale as a symbol of hope, strength, and the enduring bond between species. The universe had witnessed bravery, acknowledged it, and in response, had shifted the course of fate, proving that even the smallest, most fragile beings could influence the world. Eldrin's heart, ancient and vast, felt a strange warmth. Humans, he realized, were capable of greatness, not just in physical strength, but in spirit. They could rise to challenges, inspire others, and command the attention of even the universe itself. Kale's courage, the villagers' unity, and the dragon's guidance had proven that. And as Eldrin disappeared into the fading light, leaving the glowing scale behind as a gift and a promise, the village below looked up at the sky, knowing that they had survived, that they had grown, and that the spirit of humanity, fragile, resilient, and courageous, would endure.